It began with a name. A simple code name buried inside a half-burned SS document found in the ruins of Lower Silesia at the end of World War II. Gateway X. No explanation. No context. Just two words that shouldn't have survived the collapse of the Third Reich. And yet, they did. Within American intelligence archives, the code name reappeared in the late 1940s, attached to a bundle of confiscated documents brought to the United States through Operation Paperclip. Most of the material was chaotic: sketches, formulas, incomprehensible diagrams, pages stained by humidity and time. But a small portion, maybe a dozen sheets, stood out. They looked less like scientific notes and more like attempts to map human perception itself. That was the seed. The origin of what decades later would be called Gateway X. Before becoming a file, before being linked to modern conflicts, Gateway X was an ambition. A belief held by a small circle of Nazi researchers who were convinced that true dominance in war would not come from stronger weapons, but from influencing the human mind, bending perception, altering decision-making, and destabilizing entire populations without ever firing a shot. When the war ended, fragments of this project were absorbed into the American intelligence system. Some were dismissed. Others were hidden. But a handful of analysts, over time, kept revisiting those strange pages. During the Cold War, the file began to acquire a life of its own. Gateway X was no longer the name of a Nazi experiment. It had become a reference point, a theoretical framework that appeared inside a variety of black-budget programs investigating behavior, cognitive pressure, and psychological destabilization. It wasn't a single project. It was more like a silent thread passed from one generation of analysts to the next. Then, in the 1990s, something changed. With the collapse of the Soviet Union and the sudden opening of former Eastern Bloc archives, new information surfaced. Old Nazi tunnel complexes, abandoned mines, hidden research sites, many of them located in the same regions where rare earth minerals were becoming strategically valuable, started attracting interest again. And among the documents recovered in those years, the code name Gateway X returned. Not as a historical relic, but as an active reference within modern intelligence exchanges. This is where Ukraine enters the story. Over the last decade, Ukraine has become one of the most strategically important regions in the world for the extraction of rare earth elements, the materials used in advanced electronics, neural interfaces, precision sensors, and next-generation weapon systems. Control of these resources determines technological supremacy. And technological supremacy determines who shapes the battlefield, physical and cognitive. During the current war, several intelligence agencies, American, European, and Russian, began detecting anomalies near former Reich-related sites and abandoned industrial areas in western Ukraine. Unregistered research teams. Encrypted communications mentioning symbols identical to those found in the original Gateway X papers. Movements of equipment far too sophisticated to be simple geological surveys. The pattern suggested that something was being reconstructed or rediscovered. When analysts connected these modern signals with the historical Gateway X material, a disturbing picture emerged. Someone was trying to continue an old line of research. A line that connects wartime Nazi perception experiments, Cold War psychological operations, DARPA's post-9/11 neurocognitive programs, and the current information war spreading across the Ukrainian front. At its core, Gateway X isn't a machine, a weapon, or a single theory. It's a bridge. A continuity of ideas about how human perception can be shaped, distorted, and ultimately controlled. And that's why the file matters now more than ever. In a conflict where drones, missiles, and artillery dominate the news, the real battlefield is often invisible. It's the battlefield of information, of narratives, of cognitive overload, of mass manipulation. A battlefield where winning doesn't require occupying territory, but occupying the mind of your opponent. Gateway X is the missing link between these eras. A silent witness connecting the underground tunnels of the 1940s to the covert labs of the Cold War, and from there to the contested territories of today's Ukraine, where the fight for minerals mirrors the fight for influence. As we follow this trail, one thing becomes clear. History doesn't disappear. It mutates. It adapts. And sometimes, it returns exactly where it began. Follow additional content on www.protocollonacal.it/blog to discover the documents and the historical research behind this story. And don't forget to follow the podcast for new episodes of the Naacal Protocol.